Hello and welcome. You're watching World Today. I'm Geeta Mohan and there's some breaking news coming in at the top of this bulletin. Trump has now slapped tariffs on South Korea and Japan, part of his plan on tariffs for 12 countries. Two of them announced. The United States of America imposes 25% tariffs on South Korea and Japan. In a letter to the Japanese government and to the Korean administration, Trump says trade deficit a major threat to U.S. economy and therefore 25% additional tariffs on the two countries from August 1st. These are first two of the 12 countries to which letters are being sent from the White House, signed by none other than the US President himself. My colleague Pranay Upadhyay for more. Pranay, not only is he slapping tariffs, but he's also looking at threatening them. The letter very clearly says that these are the tariff rates: 25% additional tariffs on South Korea and Japan from August 1st. The other 10 countries will be named soon. He's announcing all this on his social media platform rather than an official announcement from the White House platform. Very interesting the way the US President is looking at announcements and how the President's office really is delivering those announcements from his social media platform, Truth Social, and not from any other platform or the official platform. So, major decision, 25% additional tariffs, but not only is he, like I said, has he informed the two countries of the 25% additional tariffs, he's also said that should the two countries look at a reciprocity, then there will be a 25% added to the reciprocal tariff that the two countries or the 12 countries are going to put. So important over here, huge decision by the Trump administration. He had already posted it on his social media platform that he will be sending letters to 12 countries. My colleague Pranay Upadhyay is with me. Pranay, very interesting, not just a 25% tariff, but also a threat saying that do not look at reciprocity of tariffs here.
Obviously, and these are the two key partners, be it Japan or South Korea. If you see, they are the key strategic allies for the United States. But with these letters, President Donald Trump wants to give the message that he is not sparing anyone for that matter. And he has already announced that the 12, around a dozen countries, will be in the list of first tranche of these letters he's sending out. He has already started that process, and many countries would be waiting for their letters. So we do not know whether India is there in that list or not. But in fact, as far as our sources are indicating that India is already in an advanced process of having a bilateral trade agreement with the United States, and we do not hope to get a letter or from the US President. But clearly, the kind of language which you must have also read in these letters addressed to the South Korean President, to the Japanese Prime Minister, clearly listed out that President Donald Trump has in a way he has cautioned that do not look at any reciprocity. Otherwise, like the 25% tariff, unless you negotiate a deal with the United States, which is the largest buyer of your product, then you should be ready for 25% tariffs. The tariff will be implemented from 1st of August. So clearly, President Donald Trump, if you see his tariff policy since 2nd April onward, Geeta, he's clearly playing the carrot and stick methodology. He has announced these tariffs and also opened the door for negotiations. He has been pushing out these deadlines from 9th July. The deadline has already been pushed to 1st of August now, and now he has already indicated that he's open to have a negotiation, but if not agreed, then these countries should be ready to face the 25% tariffs.
Right. Pushing the date also could do with the fact that there are certain countries with which the US is having important trade conversations, which includes India, and India might not be a part of these 12 countries. Having said that, there is a deficit that we recognize and we see when it comes to the United States of America. But is this the way to look at and take care of the imbalance in trade between US and other countries? Pranay, stay on with us. Now, as BRICS nations gathered in Rio de Janeiro for the 17th BRICS summit, US President Donald Trump threatened nations with additional 10% tariff as well if they supported anti-American policies in the BRICS bloc. Take a look at this report.
next week. We're going to get your...
As July 9 deadline for new tariff imposition approaches and letters expected to be sent to countries, US President Donald Trump has announced a new diktat for the BRICS nations. Trump has threatened new tariffs on any nation supporting anti-American policies of the BRICS group. In his Truth Social post, Trump said the US would impose an additional 10% tariff on any country aligning themselves with the anti-American policies of BRICS, with no exceptions. But he did not refer to any anti-American policy in his post. With unstable economy and policy of America First disrupting major economies of G7 and G8 developed nations, BRICS, which stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa, is providing a platform for multilateral diplomacy amid conflicts and trade wars. But China, the leading nation in BRICS, responded saying that the group does not target any particular nation, though condemning trade tariffs.
The BRICS mechanism is an important platform for cooperation between emerging markets and developing countries, advocating openness, inclusiveness, win-win cooperation and non-confrontation, not against any country.
We have indeed seen such statements by President Trump, but it is very important to note here that the uniqueness of a group like BRICS is that it is a group of countries that share common approaches and a common worldview on how to cooperate based on their own interest. And this cooperation within BRICS has never been and will never be directed against any third country.
The threat to American economy from BRICS is the growing demand for de-dollarization. An idea was floated to create a common currency for trade between each other, thereby reducing the dependency on dollars. Brazil, the host of the 17th BRICS summit, proposed the idea whereby countries should not be forced to trade in US dollars. Russian President Vladimir Putin seconded President Lula's idea.
We all see that the world is undergoing fundamental changes. The unipolar system of international relations serving the interest of the so-called golden billion is becoming a thing of the past. It seems that the creation of an independent settlement and depository system on the BRICS platform will make currency transactions faster, more efficient and safer.
However, India has been dismissing the claims of de-dollarization or introduction of any new currency within BRICS.
I don't think there's any policy on our part to replace the dollar. As I said, at the end of the day, the dollar as the reserve currency is the source of international economic stability. The suggestion or the assumption that somewhere there's a united BRICS position against the dollar, I think is not borne out by facts.
The original BRICS group had first met in 2009. The bloc later added South Africa and last year included Egypt, Ethiopia, Indonesia, Iran and the United Arab Emirates as members. Mahashweta Lala, Bureau Report, India Today.
Well, Pranit, the serious threat that Trump is looking at the BRICS from is to do with de-dollarization. Despite the fact that India has said that there is no de-dollarization, it seems like right now he's thinking of BRICS bloc as an anti-America bloc.
Geeta, the United States has always been very critical about the BRICS as a grouping, and we have seen in the past the previous US president has also commented on the BRICS, but especially the President Donald Trump is quite vocal about his criticism. Even in the past, he has said that BRICS is a non-entity, nobody cares about the BRICS, and he has already threatened in the past as well about the possible de-dollarization or any idea to de-dollarize or replace dollar as the global currency of trade. So clearly, with the BRICS meeting, the 17th BRICS meeting is underway in Brasilia. He has recently posted on Truth Social threatening and giving out, threats to the Brazilian leadership, in support of Jair Bolsonaro, the previous Brazilian president, criticizing the current Brazilian leadership. But besides that, he is critical about the idea of de-dollarization. All the BRICS countries have indicated that they are not looking at any de-dollarization per se, but yes, they are looking at, having trade in local currencies, in the national
Absolutely.
currencies, and promoting the national currencies for the internationalization of their economy, their trade, and diversifying their own trade. But clearly, this is a clear confrontation, and this has come at a time. This puts a very interesting, a challenging time for India as well, Geeta, because from Brazil, India is taking over the chairmanship of Brazil, and now onward, at a time when we are having our bilateral trade agreement with the United States, we also have to balance this block. So this multipolarity and balancing of the depth of diplomacy need to be played.
Right, Pranay, stay on. Now, Prime Minister Modi participated at the BRICS 17th summit in Rio de Janeiro. In his address to BRICS nations on day one of the summit, PM Modi denounced the Pahalgam terror attack that India faced on the 22nd of April. He said the attack was a blow to entire humanity, asserting that silent support of terrorism is not acceptable anymore. Prime Minister Modi also called for a unified stance against terror and said that there should be no hesitation in imposing sanctions on terrorists. Acknowledging the PM's concerns, BRICS nations strongly condemned the Pahalgam attack as criminal and unjustifiable. BRICS condemned Pak terror in presence of China, although without naming any one nation. The term they used was cross-border terrorism. The summit declared that those involved must be held accountable and that zero tolerance on terrorism must be ensured. Prime Minister Modi also continued his Global South outreach and said that 2/3 of humanity has not been adequately represented in global institutions. He added that the Global South has not been given a place at the decision-making table, and this is not just a question of representation, but also a question of credibility and effectiveness. Pranay, India taking the lead when it comes to Global South. From here, he's going to Namibia. We're looking at a major thrust from Brazil to Argentina, to Ghana, Trinidad and Tobago, and now Namibia.
You're absolutely right, Geeta. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is in Brazil. He will be going from Rio de Janeiro after the conclusion of the 17th BRICS summit. He will be going to Brasilia, the capital of Brazil, for the bilateral visit, and thereafter he'll be headed to Namibia, and after that he'll return back after the successful tour. So if you see the 5 countries where he is like due to visit, and Ghana to Argentina to Trinidad Tobago to Namibia to Argentina, and then Brazil, and then Namibia. Clearly, the footprint of the spots clearly indicates that how India is reaching out to the prominent countries of Global South, how we are building our relationship, and especially the BRICS summit. If we talk about Geeta here, that this is a grouping of 45% of the global population, 35% of the global economy, and the success of BRICS declaration. You can say that you can call it that it is a success of India's diplomacy, because the grouping has clearly lauded India's stand vis-a-vis the international terrorism, combating international terrorism, criticizing the Pahalgam terror attack, and at a time when China is also part of this grouping, but India's diplomacy has succeeded in getting this declaration, the BRICS declaration, which has come out very clearly as far as the stand on terrorism is concerned.
Right, Pranay Upadhyay, thank you so much for joining us. Now, China seems rattled by India's Operation Sindoor and failure of its missiles, resorting to anti-Rafale campaign and agenda. French intel reports have now exposed how China is pushing a misinformation campaign against Rafale jets following the dismal performance of Chinese missiles during Operation Sindoor. The reports exposed that defense attachés in China's foreign embassies led a charge to undermine Rafale sales, seeking to persuade countries that have already ordered the French-made fighter, notably Indonesia, not to buy more and to encourage other potential buyers to choose Chinese-made planes. Indian defense experts detail how China wants to push its J-10 fighters to countries including Indonesia, which had already ordered Rafales from Dassault, as Beijing reels from massive impact on its defense sector after Operation Sindoor. Now, joining us live is Lieutenant General KJS Dhillon, former DGDIA. Thank you so much for joining us here on the network, sir. Now, how has China become assertive through its missions in spreading doubt about the performance of the Rafales? And then they're also using their cultural centers, which have now become listening posts.
Good evening, ma'am, and good evening to all your viewers. Chinese propaganda through their embassies trying to prove that their weapon systems are better than the French systems or Russian systems or Indian systems. Operation Sindoor was being seen by the world, especially the third world countries, who are biggest importers of the weapon systems from all these top-ranking manufacturers of the world weapon systems. That includes China. So intention was to prove to the world that Chinese weapon system and Turkish weapon systems and some of the inventory of Pakistan also has Western weapon systems, including the aircrafts. So intention was to prove that these weapon systems are better than the Russian, Indian, or French, so that the next orders come to these industries. Whereas the truth on ground was that within 72 hours, Pakistan's air defense was down, Pakistan's air force was grounded, and India could hit their 13 air bases and other installations at will on the third day, that is on the 10th of May morning. And because of this, what was seen by the world, the stock markets of Chinese reacted to this truth. And on 13th of May, Chinese markets defense index fell by 3%. And two of the main weapon manufacturing companies, and I got the names, typical Chinese names, two of the main weapon defense manufacturing companies, their shares slipped by 8.6% and 6.3% respectively in a single day on 13th of May. Now, markets are not driven by propaganda. Markets are driven by actuals. And when the actuals came to be known to the world, Chinese market slumped. So it was a real life trials going on of the Chinese aircrafts, Chinese radars, Chinese missiles vis-a-vis Indian air defense system, the Indian joint venture systems like BrahMos, and Russian systems like S-400, and French systems, say, Rafales. So this propaganda is basically to keep their weapons market and clients intact, which I think is known to the whole world by now.
Right, General Dillon, there are so many conflicts and wars that are taking place, especially when you look at Operation Sindoor. Is this now a battle for global arms trade?
Absolutely, ma'am. In this particular conflict, this was the first conflict in the history where two nuclear powers were involved in war fighting with each other. Never before this, the two nuclear powers have ever come to this type of a situation. And this was also the first time in the history that a nuclear power was downed within 72 hours. Their air defense was down, their air force was down, and their defensive mechanism was down, and Indian weapon systems and Indian projectiles could hit all their essential strategic assets, airfields and others, at will. And it was accepted by none other than, or no less than, the Prime Minister of Pakistan, when he told that the Chief of Army Staff called him in the night and told him the Noor Khan Air Base, which is one of the strategic assets next to a strategic division, that has been hit. And our DGs of air operations, army, military operations, and naval operations in the media briefings have shown the videos and the satellite imageries and the weapon-mounted camera imageries to prove that all the weapon systems we fired, nothing could be intercepted by Chinese radars or Chinese air defense system or Turkish air defense systems, which Pakistan was using. Whereas all our weapon systems hit the intended target on 10th morning, none of the projectiles, including Chinese missiles and Chinese aircrafts, could hit any of our military installations over the 3 days which they were trying. So Indian defense, air defense system, Russian and French, as I said, they proved far more superior than the Chinese and Turkish. But the Western media had a narrative to sell that Indian weapon systems or the Russian or French weapon systems were not good enough because they were looking at long-term defense sales market. So for that reason, they have even used their embassies to spread this false narrative that Chinese weapon systems were better. And we all know all that, false narrative of so many aircrafts downed and all. In the end, on the 4th day of the battle, Pakistan was down to their knees, and that is when at exactly 3:35 p.m., their DGMO picked up the phone, called up our DGMO, and asked for cessation of hostilities. So this is the truth which the world knows.
Right. Lieutenant General KJS Dhillon, thank you so much for joining us. Flash floods that ravaged Texas over the weekend have killed at least 82 people and left many others missing in the state in southern United States of America. The deaths and destruction caused by the floods have brought the government's response and warning systems under scrutiny. A warning for flash floods in parts of Texas remains in place, and the search for missing people continues.
Death, destruction and devastation. This is the grim reality facing central Texas. At least dozens have died, with many still missing after devastating flash floods wreaked havoc in Texas. The relentless floodwaters stranded families at campsites, submerged homes and swept vehicles away in their path. Kerr County was the hardest hit among the 20 affected counties in the region. Volunteers and residents continued tireless search efforts across 12 counties, determined to find those still missing.
I've driven down from Hunt, and it's the most horrific. As soon as we saw how horrible it was, we kind of knew there weren't going to be survivors. It's just been difficult. It's really hard to go through the river and trying to find anything. The guys have fallen here and there. We're using backhoe to maybe shake up the trees, see if anybody's stuck up there, but it's been very difficult.
Eyewitnesses and survivors described the chaos and heartbreak as the deadly floodwaters rose swiftly, claiming lives and ripping apart communities.
The hardest part was there was a little boy who started floating downstream, and he was screaming, asking for help, but there just wasn't anything anybody could do at that point.
This is my parents' house. They're in their 80s. 11 o'clock at night, they started having the water rise and come into their house, so they were able to escape up the hill. And they got word of their neighbor being stuck in her attic, so they went over and rendered aid and got her out. She's 92 years old. Then they were able to reach their tool shed up higher ground, and neighbors throughout the early morning began to show up at their tool shed, and they all rode it out together.
The most devastating impacts of the flooding were felt at Camp Mystic, a popular summer camp for youngsters. Many of the victims were children and staff affiliated with summer programs across the region. Meanwhile, officials released videos showing Texas military forces evacuating a group of campers using a truck around the town of Hunt. As floods continue to wreak havoc, serious questions are emerging. Could recent job cuts in key federal agencies have contributed to the scale of the disaster?
Are you investigating whether some of the cuts to the federal government left key vacancies at the National Weather Service or in the emergency coordination?
No. They did not.
US President Trump, on the other hand, called the floods catastrophic while blaming the previous government.
They did. I'll tell you, if you look at that water situation that all is, and that was really the Biden setup. That was not our setup, but I wouldn't blame Biden for it either. I would just say this is a 100-year catastrophe, and it's just so horrible to watch.
As investigations into the cause and response unfold, authorities continue to assess the full extent of the damage, and efforts are ongoing to locate missing individuals. Aid is being rushed to the communities hardest hit by one of the deadliest floods Texas has seen in decades. With Neha Kumari, Bureau Report, India Today.
That's all in this edition of World Today, but before I go, we leave you with this report. Louis Vuitton just brought Indian streets to the global runway. The fashion giant just unveiled a bold accessory, a bag shaped like an auto-rickshaw as part of their Spring-Summer 2026 collection. While some call it iconic, others are raising their eyebrows. Take a look.
After Prada's Kolhapuri Chappal Rao, it's Louis Vuitton now turning heads and steering straight into India. At its Men's Spring Summer 2026 show, the luxury giant unveiled a showstopper, a bag shaped like an auto-rickshaw. Crafted in signature LV canvas, complete with tiny wheels, this Pharrell Williams creation is priced at a jaw-dropping 35 lakh rupees. But the Indian inspiration didn't end there. A trunk styled like a traditional sandook, a runway painted like snakes and ladders by architect Bijoy Jain, and a soundtrack by A.R. Rahman. All part of a vibrant collection titled A Voyage to India. A mix of street flair, cultural motifs, and couture, turning daily desi icons into luxury statements. The internet seems to have been divided on this creation. While some call this bag a luxury sculpture, others say it's middle-class struggle in high-class couture. Another user jokingly commented about the price, saying they would rate it according to a meter. With the world's top fashion houses now taking cue from India, the big question is, are they celebrating Indian culture or tapping into a booming market? With Sujata Sharda, Bureau Report, India Today.